The gardens of Xanthus Prime stretched in impossible fractals beneath the triple helix of its artificial suns, a living tapestry of conquest. Bioluminescent vines coiled around obsidian pillars, their petals sharp enough to draw blood from careless fingers. Carnivorous blooms the size of hovercrafts pulsed gently in their nutrient baths, engineered to digest entire forests in a single gulp. This was the heart of the Galactic Horticultural Collective's power. Not warships, not armies, but the silent, creeping dominance of roots and spores. High botanist Zyxel strode through the grand arboretum on six-jointed limbs, their chitinous carapace polished to a mirror sheen. Behind them, a retinue of lesser botanists from a dozen species scurried to keep pace, their appendages clutching data slates and specimen cases. "Observe," Zyxel intoned, their voice a harmonic vibration that made the nearest flowers tremble. "The Vexus Thalex, capable of reducing a Class 12 jungle to barren soil in 3 planetary rotations." They gestured to a towering fern-like structure, its fronds dripping a viscous fluid that hissed where it touched the ground. A single seed pod could cleanse an entire continent of undesirable biomass. The assembled dignitaries, Caif Moran with their crystalline exoskeletons, Vithuri with their sinuous tentacles, murmured appreciatively. A Nyxandran diplomat, all 4 of their heads bobbing in unison, extended a delicate proboscis to sample the air. "Exquisite lethality," they chimed. "The collective's mastery is beyond question." Zyxel's multifaceted eyes glittered. "And yet," they said, pausing for dramatic effect, "we have a special exhibit today." With a flick of their foremost limb, a pair of armored drones dragged a struggling figure into the center of the arboretum. Dr. Elara Voss hit the polished mycelium floor hard, her knees scraping against what felt like living marble. The air was thick with alien pollens, sweet and cloying, and her lungs burned with the effort not to cough. Around her, the collective's elite loomed like a forest of disdain. "Behold," Zyxel announced, "the best Earth's so-called science could produce." A drone shoved a potted plant into Elara's hands, a rose, its thorns dull compared to the razor-edged flora surrounding her. The crowd tittered. A Caif Moran diplomat tapped their crystal claws together in mock applause. "Pathetic defensive mechanisms," they buzzed. "Your species relies on metal to wage war? How quaint." Elara said nothing. She kept her eyes downcast, her fingers tightening around the pot. Let them laugh. Shed spent years studying the collective's broadcasts, their endless lectures on botanical supremacy. She knew their gardens were pristine, sterile, perfect, and that was their weakness. Zyxel circled her, their voice dripping with amusement. "Tell us, human, do you even comprehend the depth of your inferiority? Your planet's flora is reactive. Ours conquers." Elara risked a glance upward. The arboretum's ceiling was a lattice of living tendrils, filtering the artificial sunlight into precise wavelengths. Every plant here was a masterpiece of genetic engineering, and every one of them had never known a single day of true competition. "I comprehend," she said softly, "that you've never seen a dandelion crack through durasteel." The crowd erupted in laughter. Zyxel's mandibles twitched in irritation. "Enough! You are here to learn, human. To witness what true mastery looks like." They gestured to a vast, shimmering pool where the collective's latest creation floated, a lotus-like organism, its petals edged with serrated teeth. The Varaxis bloom. A single specimen can terraform a world to our specifications within a standard cycle. Elara's stomach twisted. Shed read the reports. The collective didn't terraform, they erased. They seeded these abominations on rebellious planets and watched as native ecosystems were devoured, replaced by the collective's uniform, obedient gardens. And now they expected her to admire it. Zyxel leaned in, their breath reeking of chlorophyll and something metallic. "You will tour our facilities. You will acknowledge your species' inadequacy." And then they trailed off, letting the threat hang. Elara nodded meekly. But as the drones marched her past rows of genetically perfected horrors, her fingers brushed against her sleeve, where a dozen earth seeds lay hidden in the stitching. Let the collective have their perfect, invincible garden. Earth's flora had grown from chaos, and chaos, as it turned out, was hungry. The grand hall of Zenthis Prime was a cathedral of arrogance, its vaulted ceilings dripping with bioluminescent vines that pulsed in smug, synchronized rhythms. The air smelled of engineered perfection. No earthy musk, no wild unpredictability, just the sterile tang of genetic dominance. Elara Voss stood at the center of it all, a speck of human defiance in a sea of alien contempt. High botanist Zyxel, a towering figure with bark-like skin and eyes that glowed like embers, gestured to her with a limb that split into 4 prehensile tendrils. "Behold," they announced, their voice a symphony of condescension, the pinnacle of Earth's so-called botanical achievements. A holographic display flickered to life, showcasing Earth's flora like a museum of failures. A rose, its thorns pitifully blunt compared to the collective's razor-spined Vexus blossom. An oak tree, its growth deemed laughably slow next to the Zentharian titanweed, which could strangle a building in a week. Zyxel's inner circle, xenobotanists with too many limbs and too little humility, chittered in amusement. One, a spindly creature with iridescent frills, prodded at a holographic dandelion. "Pathetic," it sneered. "It doesn't even fight back when uprooted." Elara kept her face carefully blank, but her fingers twitched toward the hidden seams of her sleeves where Earth's true emissaries lay dormant. Let them laugh, she thought. They've never seen a dandelion crack through concrete. "Tell us, Dr. Voss," Zyxel purred, circling her like a predator toying with prey. "Why does your species cling to such feeble organisms? Your reliance on pesticides," they spat the word like a curse, "is a testament to your inability to master nature." Elara bowed her head, playing the part of the chastised primitive. "Our methods are crude by your standards," she murmured. "Crude by your standards," she murmured. "Crude," Zyxel's laughter echoed through the hall. "They are barbaric. We sculpt life itself. Our gardens are weapons. Our flowers conquer worlds." They gestured to a nearby nexus thorn, its petals edged with serrated teeth. "This beauty can dissolve a Skrellian exoskeleton in seconds. What does your rose do? Prick a finger?" More laughter. Alara's nails dug into her palms. Then, with a theatrical flourish, Zyxel led the assembly to the crown jewel of the exhibition, the omniphage bloom, a plant engineered to consume entire ecosystems. Its roots pulsed like veins, its pollen shimmered with a deadly iridescence. "This," Zyxel declared, "is the future of galactic terraforming. These Almtion. A single pod could reduce your Earth to fertile ash in a cycle." The aliens oozed admiration. Elara studied the omniphage with clinical detachment. No immune system, she noted. No microbial resistance. Just pure, unchecked aggression. It was a bully, bred to win in a controlled environment. The collective's bioscanners, calibrated for their own sterile perfection, missed the stowaways entirely. "You seem fascinated, Doctor," sneered a junior botanist, Crix, their nameplate read. Their voice was less assured than Zyxel's, their skepticism tinged with something almost like curiosity. Elara offered a meek smile. "It's all so advanced." Crix's antennae twitched. "You're taking notes, merely admiring." She tucked her hands behind her back, where a single Acer rubrum seed clung to her sleeve. Zyxel swooped in before Crix could press further. "Pay no mind to the humans' primitive awe," they scoffed. "Come, the real marvels await." As the crowd moved on, Elara exhaled. The first seeds had been planted, both literally and otherwise. The collective's gardens were pristine, yes, but pristine meant fragile, and Earth's flora had a way of thriving in cracks. Later, in the solitude of her assigned quarters, a glorified cell with a view of the dying Xanthian sunset ferns. Ironic, Elara unstitched her sleeve. A dozen earth seeds tumbled into her palm. Dandelion, clover, bamboo-side. She rolled them between her fingers, smiling. Outside, the omniphage bloom stood tall, unchallenged, unaware. Tomorrow, she'd introduce it to competition. The omniphage bloom stood unchallenged no longer. Elara Voss watched from the shadow of a towering Xantharian titanweed, its crystalline leaves shivering in the artificial breeze. 3 days had passed since she'd slipped the first earth seeds into the irrigation ducts. 3 days since the collective's pristine gardens had tasted real competition. A junior botanist, Crix, she recalled, one of the few who didn't sneer at her outright, bent over a patch of wilted Xanthian sunset ferns, his 4 hands fluttering in distress. "Hi, botanist Zixel," he called, voice tight. "The tertiary quadrant's nutrient matrix is destabilizing. The ferns aren't responding to treatment." Zixel lumbered over, his carapace clicking with irritation. "Impossible! The ferns are flawless! You've misapplied the stimulants!" Crick's antennae twitched. "I followed protocol exactly. What the roots? Look." He pried up a fern, its gilded fronds crumbling like dried paper. Beneath, a tangle of white filaments pulsed, voracious and alien. Mycorrhizal fungi, Earth's silent assassins. Elara pressed her lips together, smothering a smile. She'd woven the fungi into the soil herself, a gift wrapped in ignorance. The collective's plants had never needed to share. They'd been designed to dominate, to suck the earth barren and leave nothing for rivals. But Earth's flora had evolved in a war zone. It knew how to fight dirty. Cell scoffed. Mandibles clacking. A minor imbalance. Increased the nitrogen flow. He turned, his bulk knocking against the Class 7 arboreal sentinel. The tree shuddered, its bark splitting with a sound like cracking glass. Elara's fingers itched. Too easy. The sentinel was a fortress, bred to withstand plasma fire. But bamboo grew through concrete. She'd planted a shoot at its base yesterday. Now hidden beneath the soil, its rhizomes were likely strangling the sentinel's roots, inch by relentless inch. Crix hesitated. "Hi, botanist, the sensors also detected enough." Zixel's voice dripped condescension. "The grand exhibition is in 6 rotations. Focus on the display, not phantom malfunctions." He stalked away, his retinue of sycophants trailing like petals in his wake. Crick's shoulders slumped. His gaze flicked to Elara, lingering just a second too long. Careful. She adjusted her gloves, feigning absorption in a nearby prickle pod. The collective's arrogance was a shield, but Crix, he noticed things. By dusk, the gardens whispered of rebellion. Elara walked the manicured paths, her boots scuffing the pearlescent gravel. To the untrained eye, all was perfection. The titan weeds stood sentinel, their leaves refracting the triple suns into prismatic splendor. The omniphage blooms swayed, their nectar thick with engineered toxins. But if you knew where to look, a dandelion grinned up from a crack in the walkway, its yellow head cocked in defiance. She crouched, pretending to examine a Class 3 vining razor. Her fingers brushed the dandelion's stem, feeling its stubborn vitality. No pesticides here. No sterile, controlled environments, just life, raw and untamed. A shadow fell over her. "You're not studying the razor." Elara straightened slowly. "No, I'm admiring your handiwork." She gestured to the wilted razor, its tendrils limp. "A shame." His antennae flattened. "They were healthy yesterday." "Were they?" She tilted her head. "Or did you just not see the rot until it was too late?" Crick's middle hands clenched. "What did you do?" Elara laughed. Crick's middle hands clenched. "What did you do?" Elara laughed, soft and mocking. "Remember?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. But tell me, Crix, how does the omniphage fare against something that wants to be eaten? His breath hitched. Shed planted butterweed near the omniphage, a harmless earth plant, save for one quirk. Its leaves contained a mild alkaloid that, when ingested, triggered aggressive mutations in monocultures. The omniphage had gorged itself. Now, deep in its cells, the poison was rewriting its code. Crick's voice was a blade. You'll be executed for this. Touching the dirt? She spread her hands. I'm just a guest, Crix. Maybe your perfect garden isn't so perfect after all. A tremor shook the ground. Nearby, a Class 7 sentinel groaned, its trunk splintering as bamboo shoots erupted from its core like green spears. Crix stumbled back. What? Elara didn't answer. She turned and walked away, leaving him amid the crumbling perfection. The garden's death throes had begun, and the collective still hadn't realized they were losing. Wash. Not with the slow, dignified withering of a plant deprived of water, but with the violent, thrashing collapse of an ecosystem that had never known competition. The air, once perfumed with the collective's engineered floral symphonies, notes of ambrosial nectar and crystalline pollen, now carried the acrid tang of decay, thick enough to coat the back of the throat. The sky, usually a serene lavender, was streaked with the ashy remnants of disintegrating biofilters, their delicate membranes shredded by the relentless push of Earth's invaders. The crystalline pathways, polished to a mirror sheen by dutiful maintenance drones, were cracked and buckled, split apart by the insidious roots of dandelions, tiny golden conquerors that had no respect for alien aesthetics. Their jagged leaves speared through the fractures, triumphant, as if mocking the collective's precision. High botanist Zixel stormed through the chaos, his forearms twitching with barely contained fury. His exoskeleton, usually a gleaming indigo, was streaked with the sticky residue of dying flora. His voice, typically a measured drone of superiority, cracked like a splitting stem. He whirled on a cluster of trembling junior botanists, their fronds quivering in distress. One of them, a young Xantharian barely past her first pruning cycle, clutched a shattered growth pod to her chest, its contents leaking between her fingers like spilled blood. Crix, the only one among them who dared meet Zyxal's gaze, hesitated. His secondary eyes flicked to the edge of the garden, where Elara Voss knelt beside a patch of overgrown kudzu, her fingers brushing its leaves as if in quiet approval. The sight sent a cold ripple through his thorax. Elara didn't look up. Did what? Elara finally stood, wiping her hands on her trousers. Around them, the garden was a war zone. The collective's bioengineered orchids, designed to secrete paralytic nectar, lay trampled under the advance of creeping thistle, their delicate petals shredded by the thorns of Earth's relentless defenders. Their Xantharian titanweed, bred to strangle entire forests, had been reduced to a withered husk, its roots choked by a network of mycorrhizal fungi, Earth's silent, symbiotic assassins. A gust of wind carried the scent of loam and rust, the smell of something alive in a way the collective's sterile perfection had never allowed. Crick's antennae flattened against his skull. He could hear it now, the sound of the garden dying. Not the gentle rustle of leaves, but the wet crunch of roots forcing their way through stone, the snap of vines coiling around the collective's prized specimens, squeezing the life from them with ruthless efficiency. A tremor shook the ground as another sentinel collapsed, its massive form crashing into a bed of engineered lilies. Somewhere in the distance, a panicked shriek echoed. One of the collective's attendants had stumbled into a patch of nettles, their limbs already swelling with venomous welts. Zyxal's voice cut through the chaos. Enough! He shoved past Crix, his primary eyes narrowed to slits, his mandibles clicking in fury. You dare imply this is our failure? Our gardens have terraformed 1,000 worlds. Elara smiled. And how many of those worlds fought back? For a moment, there was silence. Then the ground beneath Zyxel's feet moved. He looked down just as the pavement split open, a tangle of roots surging upward. Not the orderly, genetically pruned tendrils of the collective's design, but the gnarled, opportunistic fingers of Earth's Rubus fruticosus, the blackberry brambles. Zyxel barely had time to scream before the thorns found him. The vines coiled around his limbs, their serrated edges slicing through his exoskeleton with terrifying ease. He thrashed, his voice rising to a shrill, panicked frequency as the brambles tightened, dragging him toward the ruptured earth. His junior botanists scattered, their cries lost beneath the cacophony of the garden's collapse. Hick stumbled back, his breath ragged. You monster! Elara watched as the brambles coiled tighter, their thorns sinking deeper. No, she said softly. Just a gardener. Around them, the garden, once a symbol of the collective's invincibility, was now a battleground. The air hummed with the drone of Earth's pollinators, their wings beating in relentless unison. The soil, once sterile and obedient, now teemed with unseen life, a network of roots and fungi spreading like a whispered rebellion. And Earth's flora was winning. Crick's hands trembled. He had studied the collective's archives, memorized every genetic sequence, every carefully curated strand of DNA. But this was something else. This was chaos. Elara turned to him, her expression unreadable. You can run, she said, but it won't matter. The seeds are already sown. Somewhere in the distance, another tree fell, and the garden breathed. Crick's breath came in ragged gasps as he cornered Elara in the shadow of a collapsing arboreal spire, its crystalline leaves now brittle and blackened. The air reeked of rotting vegetation and something sharper, panic. Elara didn't flinch. She brushed a strand of hair from her face, smeared with pollen from the dying garden. Infection implies disease, she said softly. This is just competition. Around them, the garden convulsed. Kudzu, thick as a man's arm, coiled around the collective's bioluminescent fountains, choking their light. Dandelions erupted through polished walkways, their roots splitting alien stone like it was stale bread. And the titanweed, oh, the titanweed, now writhed in grotesque symbiosis with Earth's bindweed, their combined stems pulsing with a grotesque hybrid vigor. Crick's voice cracked. Our plants were perfect, engineered to dominate any ecosystem. Dry Elara laughed, a sound like dry leaves scraping pavement. Dry leaves scraping pavement. Trial systems. But Earth! She crouched, plucking a dandelion from a crack in the pavement. Our flora evolved in hell. Ice ages, asteroids, volcanoes that buried continents in ash. You think your controlled environments could prepare for that? A distant scream cut through the air. Somewhere, a collective botanist had stumbled into a thicket of mutated thorns. Elara didn't even glance toward the sound. Crick's frills flushed violet with dawning horror. You let us take you. You wanted to be here. Elara's smile was a knife. The best invasive species don't announce themselves. The remaining guards lurched forward, only for the ground beneath them to heave. Vines, no, something worse, burst from the soil. Oh, not titanweed, not bindweed. A grotesque fusion of both, studded with thorns like shattered glass. They coiled around ankles, thighs, throats. One guard screamed as a barbed tendril punched through his chest plate, flowering inside his ribcage. Zyxel's platform stuttered. What abomination is this? Elara stepped over a twitching guard, her boots sinking into soil that had turned black and fecund. Just a little cross-pollination, she said. Your titanweed was so eager to dominate, it didn't notice Earth's bindweed rewriting its DNA. Now it dominates for us. The hover platform's engines sputtered. Zyxel's face twisted as he finally understood. You weaponized our weapons. Crick stumbled back, his heel catching on a root. He fell hard, his palm scraping against. Were those earthworms wriggling in the alien soil? Elara loomed over him, backlit by the dying glow of the garden's central spire. "Run if you want," she said, not unkindly. "But it won't help. The mycorrhizal networks are already in your water supply. The pollen's in your vents. Even if you burn it all down." She gestured to a cluster of mushrooms erupting from a nearby corpse. "The spores will survive." Somewhere, a tree groaned and split down the middle, its trunk riddled with burrowing beetles from a planet it had never been meant to know. Crix whispered, "You'll destroy us all." Elara turned away. "No," she said, walking into the chaos. "Just the illusion that you were ever in control." And as the last of the titanweed shuddered and bloomed into something unrecognizable, the garden screamed. The screams of the garden were not metaphorical. Xantharian titanweed, engineered to sing in harmonic frequencies when thriving, now shrieked in dissonant agony as Earth's mycorrhizal network strangled its roots. The air, once perfumed with the collective's curated floral symphonies, reeked of rotting biomass and something sharper, Terran defiance. Elara Voss walked through the collapsing paradise like a ghost, her boots crushing the crystalline petals of Zixel's prized lumen blooms. Their bioluminescence flickered erratically, infected by a strain of Pseudomonas bacteria shed smuggled in her own saliva. Behind her, Crix staggered, his carapace splattered with neon sap from a ruptured titanweed pod. "You knew," he rasped. "You knew Earth's flora would do this." She didn't turn. "I knew your gardens had never fought a war." The grand exhibition hall, where Zixel had once paraded her as a living exhibit, was now a cathedral of ruin. Kudzu, ordinary, earthborn kudzu, had scaled the obsidian pillars, its vines pulsing with unnatural vigor as they metabolized the alien alloys. The collective's dignitaries, their exoskeletons dull with panic, clawed at the vegetation engulfing the exits. High botanist Zixel stood atop the central dais, his forearms trembling as he injected a stabilizer serum into the roots of the class-engineered ice vines. The serum hissed, useless. The vines blackened, their cellular structure unraveling as Earth's fusarium fungi rewrote their DNA. Elara tilted her head, watching a dandelion force its way through a crack in the dais. "You called our plants weak," she said, "but weakness is just another word for adaptability. Earth's flora survived 5 mass extinctions. What have yours survived? A slight imbalance in your irrigation schedule? A titanweed pod burst overhead, showering them in acidic spores. Zixel screamed as his chitin blistered. She pried his fingers loose, gentle but firm. "No, your gardens were monocultures, perfect, pristine, and fragile. Earth's ecosystems are built on chaos. We thrive in it." A thunderous crack split the air as the hall's eastern wall collapsed, crushed under the weight of a mutated titanweed. Its once glossy fronds were now barbed with thorns. "Rose thorns," Elara noted with grim satisfaction. Zixel lunged at her, a pruning blade flashing in his primary hand. She sidestepped, letting him stumble into a patch of poison ivy, another Earth souvenir. His shrieks joined the garden's chorus. Outside, the capital burned, not with fire, but with life. Grass, common Terran grass, had infiltrated the nutrient canals, its rhizomes secreting enzymes that dissolved the collective's polymer linings. The streets buckled as oak saplings, accelerated by alien sunlight, shattered the pavement. Elara reached the spaceport where panicked elites shoved each other to board evacuation shuttles. None noticed the dandelion fluff caught in the engine vents. Crix caught up to her, bleeding from his mandibles. "Where are you going?" She boarded a derelict scout ship, its hull already veined with morning glory. "Home," she said, "to tell Earth what we've planted." 3 cycles later, the remnants of the Horticultural Collective received a transmission. The screen showed Earth, not the barren rock they'd mocked, but a riot of green, its forests thicker, its deserts blooming. Elara's voice was calm. "You tried to make us kneel in your garden, but you forgot Earth grows thorns." The feed cut to static. Day. Somewhere in the ruins of Xanthes Prime, a rose bloomed in the dark.